Truth fractures the moment it is pulled down from the cosmos and placed into human hands. Welcome to another story in the series From Wonder to Power, The Journey of Thought. Today I want to show you how the Sophists, man as the measure of all things, shifts philosophy away from being and toward the human world itself. After centuries spent asking what the world is made of, what endures beneath change, and what laws govern nature, attention turns sharply inward. The great questions do not disappear, but they lose urgency. What matters now is not what is universally true, but what works here and now. In the assembly, in court, in public life, truth proves slippery, negotiable, dependent on who speaks and who listens, you see. This episode begins when knowledge leaves the cosmos and enters the city. When reason becomes a tool rather than a path to reality. When persuasion rivals truth and success begins to outweigh certainty. Here, philosophy no longer asks what is, it asks what can be argued, defended, sold. Meaning becomes relative, order becomes rhetorical. Power starts learning how to dress itself as reason. This is the moment when thought stops looking upward for foundations and starts looking sideways at other people. And once man becomes the measure, everything else must adjust. In the crowded agora of Athens, a young citizen listens as two speakers defend opposite sides of the same proposal. Lyson hears one argue that the policy will save the city, the other that it will destroy it. Both use the same facts. Both persuade different parts of the crowd. The result unsettles him. If the same situation can appear good or harmful depending on how it is framed, then truth itself seems flexible. Nearby, Protagoras watches with interest. He tells Lyson that this unease marks the beginning of understanding, not its failure. People do not meet the world directly, he explains. They meet it through perception, language, and interest. What seems just to one citizen seems unjust to another. What feels beneficial today may feel disastrous tomorrow. Knowledge, then, is not access to an objective order behind appearances. It is judgment formed within human limits. Man, he says, is the measure of all things. Later, in a private setting, Aspasia debates a visiting sophist about virtue. Is courage the same in war and in politics? Is justice identical in peace and crisis? The sophist argues that moral concepts shift with context and purpose. Rules do not descend from nature or gods. They arise from agreement, habit, and power. Aspasia recognizes the practical implication. If values are human constructions, they can be taught, adjusted, and deployed. Education becomes influence. Speech becomes an instrument. Seen from above, the wider change is clear. In the 5th century BCE, democratic life depends less on lineage or divine sanction and more on persuasion. The Sophists flourish in this space. They abandon the search for cosmic foundations and focus on human variability. Truth becomes relative to perspective. Morality becomes relative to the community. As evening comes, Lyson practices his speech, adjusting words and tone, watching meaning shift. Certainty no longer lies in eternal truths, but in navigating viewpoints. Knowledge and morality have moved from nature into human judgment. The Athenian assembly is already restless when a small landowner from the outskirts of Attica prepares to speak. Philenos has facts on his side: numbers of soldiers lost, grain reserves counted, promises recorded by scribes. Yet when his turn comes, his voice tightens. Murmurs spread. Attention slips away. Soon another speaker rises and argues the opposite case with fewer facts but sharper language. The crowd leans forward. Applause breaks out. The decision turns. Philenos understands, with an uncomfortable clarity, that truth by itself does not rule the city, you know. After the vote, Gorgias stands beneath a colonnade with a group of students. He explains calmly what has just unfolded. Power in the polis no longer rests mainly in birth, wealth, or force. It flows through speech. Words guide attention. Attention shapes belief, and belief directs action. Rhetoric, he teaches, is not deception by nature. It is the skill of making one version of reality prevail over others. Whoever masters it can influence laws, reputations, even war. Later, a widow named Callianira listens as her advocate prepares her case in a property dispute. He focuses less on what happened than on how the judges should feel about it. Events are arranged into a story of fairness and injury. Metaphors are chosen carefully. Pauses are timed. Callianira realizes that her fate depends less on facts than on framing. Rhetoric turns private loss into public weight. Seen from above, rhetoric emerges as a new form of power in the 5th century BCE. As democratic life expands, persuasion replaces command. Decisions are won through consent, not decree. The Sophists recognize this and systematize it. Speech no longer reflects reality alone. It produces the version of reality that moves people to act. As dusk settles, Philenos walks home through streets still alive with debate, aware that the city now belongs to those who can speak it into shape. Near the Athenian gymnasium, a tradesman weighs the cost of his son's future. Demetrios stands beside him as a traveling sophist names his price, far higher than tools or grain would ever cost. The tension is clear. This is not schooling in letters or numbers, it is an investment. The promise is simple and unsettling. Demetrios will learn how to speak well, how to persuade, how to appear credible among men born above his station. Education here is not knowledge for its own sake. It is access, you see. In the lessons that follow, Demetrios practices shaping arguments from multiple angles. He learns how posture, rhythm, and timing can strengthen a weak claim or undermine a strong one. He is asked to defend positions he rejects, then dismantle beliefs he once held firmly. At first, this feels like betrayal of something solid. Yet results arrive quickly. Older citizens listen more carefully. Peers hesitate before interrupting him. His words gain weight, not because they are truer, but because they are better delivered. Education begins to shift his place in the city without changing his birth. Across Athens, wealthy patrons host gatherings where students trained by Sophists display their skill. These are not harmless exercises. They function as signals. Fluency suggests intelligence. Intelligence implies authority. Authority attracts alliances. Education becomes visible capital, convertible into trust, office, and influence. Those who can afford it extend their advantage. Those who cannot feel the gap widen. The polis starts to divide not only by wealth or lineage, but by access to cultivated speech. Seen from above, the transformation runs deep. Earlier education passes on tradition and moral habits. Under the Sophists, learning becomes a competitive resource. What matters is not wisdom, but effectiveness. Knowledge is valued for its power to shape perception and direct judgment. As Demetrios walks home after a lesson, he realizes something has already changed. Not what he knows, but what he can do with it. Education now moves through the city like currency, gathering power as it circulates through skilled hands. A shaded portico fills with quiet tension as an Athenian juror listens to two incompatible accounts of the same event. Hegesias hears both sides swear honesty, call witnesses, appeal to reason. He looks for truth as something fixed, external, waiting to be uncovered. Yet, as the speeches unfold, he realizes something uncomfortable. His verdict will not discover reality. It will decide it. What persuades him will become the truth of the case, you see. Later that day, Protagoras speaks to a small group near the Lyceum. He does not deny the world, nor claim that anything means anything. His point is sharper. All knowledge passes through human perception, interest, and condition. Cold feels different to the sick than to the healthy. Justice looks different to the powerful than to the vulnerable. There is no view from nowhere. Truth, as it matters in life, always appears to someone. Man, he says, is the measure of all things. Elsewhere, a metal worker reaches the same insight without the language for it. A blade that feels sharp to one hand feels dull to another. A wage that seems fair to a master feels unjust to an apprentice. Dispute do not arise because reality is denied, but because it is inhabited differently. When agreement fails, it is not facts that are missing, but a shared measure. Seen from above, the shift is decisive. Earlier philosophy searches for truth in nature, in being, in principles independent of human life. The Sophists move the center. Truth becomes inseparable from the knower. Reality is not erased, but certainty is relocated. Knowledge becomes interpretation, shaped by language, power, and perspective. As Hegesias casts his vote, he feels the weight of it. The truth will not descend from above. It will emerge from human judgment. And with that, philosophy crosses a threshold. The human being becomes the reference point for truth itself. Something fundamental has shifted by the end of this chapter. Truth no longer sits safely outside human affairs, anchored in nature, being, or cosmic order. It has moved into the space between people. What counts as true now depends on who speaks, who listens, and under what conditions judgment is made. Well, what is gained is effectiveness. Human life becomes manageable in new ways. Decisions can be negotiated, taught, influenced. Knowledge becomes adaptable to circumstance. Power learns to operate without force, through persuasion and shared agreement. The city becomes governable by speech. What is lost is certainty. If truth varies with perspective, It no longer guarantees justice or wisdom. Conviction can replace understanding. Skill can outweigh substance. The line between insight and manipulation grows thin. This episode marks a turning point. Philosophy no longer asks only how the world is structured, but how humans construct meaning within it. Knowledge becomes inseparable from power. Education becomes strategy. Truth becomes something made, not merely found. From here on, thought cannot return to innocence. Once man becomes the measure, philosophy must confront its most dangerous question yet. Not what is true, but who decides.